All right, welcome to what's next after the LMS, shifting from teacher-centered to student-centered technology. What I'd like to do real quick is go over today's agenda. First off, we're going to do an introduction and welcome and look at how the LMS has helped schools and teachers over time. We're going to look at the changing landscape of education and also ed tech. We're going to identify the problem that we found and that we're solving that has to deal with the LMS. And also that basically identifying that problem will take us right into the shift to student-centered technology. And then I want to introduce you to the collaborative learning system platform. And then hopefully at the end we can have some Q&A. My name is Mike Rutherford, and I'm the CEO and founder of gotFeedback. I've been in education all my life, either in schools as an ed tech, in schools as a teacher and district technology coordinator, or as ed tech in the ed tech private sector and publishing side of education. I started my career in Fairfax County Public Schools in Virginia as a middle school social studies teacher and went into ed tech, and eventually left that and left Fairfax County, became a district technology coordinator in the Manassas City Public Schools, also in Virginia. The reason why I tell you this is because I left the schools in the late 1990s to join Blackboard, which was one of the very first LMS providers in higher education, and introduced the LMS to the K-12 market. After many years, in the private sector, I returned to the classroom as a middle school humanities teacher at the International School Bangkok. And that is where I was given access to an LMS to use as my in my classroom. And that's where I found that I had problems and started building gotFeedback version 1. And I left ISP, moved back to the States, and started a company and hired a team to build version 2. I just recently learned the metaphor of eating your own dog food, which I've been told I currently am doing, because while I'm working full-time at gotFeedback, I'm also teaching one class of middle school English language arts, one period, 3 times a week at a local middle school here outside of Philadelphia in the US. And the eating the dog food part comes because I'm using gotFeedback just as our customers are doing. So never thought I would actually present that I was eating my own dog food, but that's the metaphor of the day. So how has the LMS helped schools and teachers? As I mentioned before, I was there at the beginning of bringing the LMS into the K-12 market. We used to call on ed tech directors and assistant superintendents and superintendents, and we had to explain what an LMS was. Most were usually very receptive, but we did have a few that would told us, well, we already have a website. It even has our school district email, if you catch that, school district email address, and also fax number. And we kind of had to talk them through what it could be used as, how an LMS could be used as an instructional tool. So most everyone came around over the years, but it was a new way of thinking, using this online resource to extend our classroom beyond its 4 walls. Doesn't seem like new now, but it was then. And the LMS really didn't become ubiquitous until the pandemic. So let's take a look at how the LMS really helped. Well, first, it was really used as one place to communicate about your learning, and really as a class website. And it still is used that way in many different ways. It's also a place we can provide content, give and receive assignments, used as a discussion board. And I know that can be a very thorny subject, because discussion boards have had issues for all 25 to 26 years of the LMS existence. Had basic assessments, basic gradebook. And in the last 3 here were kind of added in the last 15 years by newer LMS companies, and that is rubrics, standards organization, and also e-portfolios. Well, we have what we know about the LMS and how it helped us, and especially helped us through the pandemic. But there's been a lot of change going on in education in the 25 years that the LMS has been the platform of choice. And that landscape has changed not only in ed tech, but also in education itself. One are with things like personalized learning, trying to meet the needs of all of our diverse learners, providing ongoing feedback, soft skills like analysis, collaboration, critical thinking, communication, complex problem solving, leadership, et cetera. Those things that we used that we called the 21st century thinking skills are very important. We also are showing growth over time. We need to show growth over time. Another thing that's coming up really is, well, the next three are really interrelated, and that's student voice and choice, building ownership of learning or building student agency, and also metacognition. Other things that are very key are balanced assessments, and basically building upon the selected response and constructed response assessments to include products, performances, and processes, and using that invaluable formative assessment data that we can get while building those products to inform our instruction. Other things that we've been doing is that are things that are coming into our schools are already there, are incorporating learning frameworks like standards-based grading, competency-based education, universal design for learning, and project-based learning, as well as blended learning. We also have things like Portrait of a Graduate, which I actually have my school that I work at right now sitting here in front of me, which goes back to a lot of those soft skills where it has things in there about being globally and community minded, balanced, intellectually curious, collaborative, creative, brave, all those kind of things. And how do we actually deal with proving that we are actually fulfilling that portrait of a graduate? And then one of the big things that is obviously we're talking quite a lot about right now is artificial intelligence. And we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to the collaborative learning system. So what the problem is, the problem here is that we have the LMS. The LMS provides us easy ways to manage our class resources online. But what we also really need are these trends in education here that we just went through. These methods and frameworks are already occurring in many of our face-to-face classrooms, but they're very difficult to do online because the platforms weren't necessarily built for that. So each of these two sections have very different focuses. And this is what I'm going to talk about a little bit. And that is the LMS is a teacher-centered platform that focuses on management of the classroom. If you look at that on the left there, the class website, providing content, assignments, rubrics, all those things are teacher-centered. The discussion board, I can see we can go a little bit off on that, and also the e-portfolios, especially if the students are the ones who are building those, are really the only things that are not really about making the teacher's management of the class a little bit easier. The trends in education section over on the right is student-centered and focuses on individual student learning. And we have to know our students to be able to be successful in pretty much any of those things right there. So what I'm going to do is basically talk about the whole problem, but just do it in hopefully one sentence. And that is, and I'm going to read this quote, is that schools and teachers do not have an online platform that can manage their classroom and enable them to use student-centered teaching methods and frameworks. So we have to acknowledge, though, I do want to acknowledge real quickly that many teachers are already using these contemporary teaching methods in their classroom and frameworks in their classroom, but the technology we have at our fingertips was not designed to support it. It's very teacher-centered and not about the individualized student. So once we realized this, what did we do? We went in and started with a whole bunch of what ifs. What if we had a platform that could help us manage classroom resources, but enable us to teach with these contemporary methods and frameworks? What if we could have online interactions that mirrored what we did every day in our face-to-face classrooms? What if we could manage personalized learning so that each of our students could have voice and choice, and we could manage all of those interactions so that they could actually take things that they're passionate about, but in regard to that actually meet our standards and what we want them to know and be able to do? What if we could have students take ownership of their learning and not have the onus be on the teachers to shoulder everything online? The students actually are going online and putting in their learning evidence, and you can see that learning evidence basically over time. And that's one of the things that is incredibly important for not only the teacher, but also the student to be able to see. And one thing that also drove us crazy was we wanted to be able to involve all stakeholders in the student's learning journey. That means other teachers, instructional coaches, special educators, school admins, and also family members. So after these and many more what ifs, we had some very key realizations. And the first thing that we realized is that to be able to use these contemporary teaching methods and frameworks, we had to leave the transactional model and create one that had ongoing collaboration between students and teachers. So what does that mean? First, what we have right now is we have the LMS transaction, which is where the teacher provides a lesson, maybe with content online, and gives a student an assignment or an assessment. We already know that in the face-to-face classroom, so much more actually transpires from the time that we give an initial learning engagement. The student goes out and does trial and error, may ask questions and answers and all those kind of things. In back and forth feedback, revisions, finally a summative submission would be coming in, and then a reflection. So what we really needed was a co-creation of learning, an online system that mirrors what we do in the face-to-face classroom. One that allows us to collaborate, provide ongoing feedback, show growth over time, and really just meet the needs of individual learners. So, second thing we realize is the student has to be at the center. The way things are right now in an LMS is it's really about the teacher, the class, and the assignment. It's not about the student's learning journey. So the platform had to be built around that student learning journey and viewable not only for that school year, but also from previous years. And with this, when you're able to do this, we wanted to be able to, the third thing that we realized is we wanted to include all stakeholders. And because I definitely want to acknowledge that the contemporary teaching methods that we've been talking about and the frameworks are a lot of work. And one of the things that frustrated mainly is that we saw that the LMS had these 4 metaphorical walls based around our classroom and didn't have a place where the student can be viewed by all their teachers, the school administrator, the learning support specialists, instructional coaches, family members, or even counselors. We wanted to take that African story of it takes a whole village to raise a child. Well, that's what we do in a face-to-face classroom. So why don't our online tools also support this? And that's partially because of the LMS's DNA from higher education. So what I'd like to do now is actually jump over to the collaborative learning system. Because it's a collaborative platform, because gotFeedback is a collaborative platform, I want to show you the student view and then also the teacher view, because you can't really have collaboration when it's just one person. So let me go ahead and share that. So what we're looking at right now I've logged in as a student, and that student's name is JC Montoya. And JC remember, we want to have a platform that does a lot of that classroom management stuff that helps us manage the resources online, but really gets to those contemporary teaching methods and frameworks. So I'm logged in as a student, and I'm able to go into my classes, and I can see my conversations and assignments. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at my class. You're going to see some of those functions that you have to have inside to actually run a class. That's like your class information and also your announcements that go through and all those kind of things for students to do. But I'm going to go ahead and jump over into their conversations. And what you're going to see in conversations here are the collaboration between teachers and students about learning. I, as JC, can jump from here to any of my classes and see any of my classes' conversations. I can also see my previous years if I need to. But what we're going to go do is take a look at and open up these summary views so you can see what a learning conversation looks like. And this happens to be an assignment of an end of unit narrative writing. I'm going to go back to the very beginning because as the student has already turned in their writing, you'll see that this is a conversation, a back and forth conversation that's linear between the student and the teacher. And basically, Ms. Watson has given instructions and has provided provided exemplar and also a rubric for JC to be able to start her end of unit narrative writing. And what you'll see here is that it went from JC Montoya to Miss Watson back to JC Montoya. So you're capturing that conversation, that learning conversation there that may have, like you saw in that graphic, that may have that back and forth question and answer in rough drafts and those kind of things. I have here, it looks like she has submitted a Google Doc, which opens up right inside of gotFeedback. And you can see that you can go in here and act just like you would do with any Google Doc. You can see her writing. But right below that document is also a place where we can provide feedback if we don't want to write right on the document. And you can see that there's a conversation here with Miss Watson and JC is actually was asked to put in her rough draft by her handwritten rough draft, and this is what you'll see here. She went ahead and scanned that in with the gotFeedback mobile app, but you can actually have all of that data in one place, so you can see that growth over time. I'm going to jump back out of this and go back to the conversation, and you can see the back and forth that happened between JC and Mrs. Watson. Mrs. Watson asked that she had annotated one of those things on there about her with some suggestions and about her dialogue, but she needed to mix up her dialogue tags a little bit. And JC asked, where is that? And Ms. Watson went ahead and, even though she had it in the resources folder, she went ahead and provided the document with it. And she can immediately see the impact of that when she opens up this document here to see that dialogue tags have actually been changed and that JC can get feedback on that. And that's exactly what has happened under this version of her writing. You can see that she used so many different dialogue tags. She's also talking about transition words and those kind of things, because inside of gotFeedback, anywhere you are, I'm sorry, I just jumped over. You can go down and add things right below this inside of a thread. If I wanted to be able to add text feedback, I could do so. I could also add upload files, scan a document, take a photo. I could actually, if I'm the teacher, can actually go in and record a video that basically says, and I can say, hey, JC, I'm providing this feedback to you and everything else. And you can give up to a 1.5-minute video, and she can do the same. And we'll go ahead and post that, and that'll show up in the linear conversation, learning conversation, as feedback. I just posted as a teacher, but I'm really logged in as a student. But she's able to do that quite easily. The other thing that you can do, I'll show you that on the teacher side, is when she's providing feedback. But you can add things anywhere inside of a conversation, and you see this conversation that continues on throughout. You also see a new teacher here, Erin Navidi, who's one of the co-teachers, who's actually who is responding to JC Montoya's reflection. And then she actually asked her a question for a little bit more clarification on her reflection. Now we have all of this data all in one conversation, so that we can see that growth over time. And in this, not only are you seeing ongoing feedback, but you're also seeing that the student can see their growth over time. And they can also, they have agency here, because they're actually able to build and create and generate, or actually even spring off into things that they want to, that are specifically just about them. Because this conversation is only available between JC and Ms. Montoya and Ms. Navidi. So once we get to the end of the conversation, you can continue that conversation on for as long as you want. So this is how the student actually sees their conversation. Now, she's also turned that conversation in. If she wants to unturn it in, she can put it into revision and edit if she needs to. What I'm going to do now, though, is I'm actually going to switch over and go to the teacher view. So I'm going to do one more screen change here. So it's looking at. So I've logged in as Miss Watson now, and what you're going to see here is that you'll see a lot more buttons on the right-hand side, because she can go to her team here and see her team teachers and do professional conversations. You also have some school settings and things that are not available to students. The teacher has her list, just like you would see those structural managerial things inside of your LMS, but you also have them here. You can also go to previous school years, create new classes, whatever it is. I'm going to go into the English language arts class where JC was. You'll see the layout is very similar to the students, and that's very purposeful. From a classroom teacher, it's very purposeful, because it always drove me nuts that I didn't know what it looked like in what I provided to a student, and the student didn't know what they looked like when they provided to the teacher. So all users inside of gotFeedback basically have the same layout, but yet with different permissions. So I have class info. This is where I can create announcements, and I have all my announcements and things that we're doing in regard to our narrative writing. You'll have the same menu bar. I can come over and see that Ms. Navidi is one of my co-teachers. I can go to assignments, and this assignments will show me all the assignments that I've given the students. We're currently working on this one here, the end of unit narrative writing, and I can see that 18 haven't read it, 1 is in progress, and 1 has turned it in. We know the turned in one is actually JC Montoya, but you can kind of get a read where everybody is. Might want to remind these 18 kids they need to do some stuff. So I'm going to go back to the key of what gotFeedback's about. That part of the graphic that I showed you at the beginning that said the student has to be at the center. And this is where it's a huge differentiator of from being teacher-centered to student-centered. If we go in and take a look at JC's, we'll go ahead and take a look at JC's record. And in JC's record, I can see this is her English conversations. Now, I could go over and take a look at other classes of JC's. I could also jump over to different students or even create new conversations, but it still has that same layout and has all of her conversations and assignments throughout the school year. I'm going to go ahead and open up JC's end of unit narrative writing and show you a little bit, show you how it basically looks exactly the same, except we can do a couple more things. As you can see, there's instructions here for JC. I can come in and provide feedback, just like I was doing before. I could jump into the document, or I could even go down into the thread and add feedback if I need to, whichever way that I want to do that. But I can also see the conversation that's going on. And if I add other students or other teachers to this conversation, I can also see that peer feedback, which is absolutely key. So as I come along and see to the end of this, this is where I can add additional. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back to her original, or to her writing here. And I want to show you that we can come in here and we can actually generate feedback. And this is using our AI tools to be able to generate feedback right inside of the platform. We provide 4 possible prompts that you can use, or you can actually put in your own custom prompts. And you can see these prompts are actually tagged to different standards. And let's go ahead and take a look at end of unit narrative, or let's do writing narrative and content organization. So it's going to make me log in real quick. And we want to go ahead and say continue. And so now over here on the right, you can see it's generating feedback for this document. It's actually reading the Google Doc and providing feedback specifically on the prompt that we just put through. And you can see there's suggestions, constructive criticism, feedback. This is moderated feedback, so you get to choose how you want to provide that feedback. If you want to go in and change it because it may not have met, or the student may not know those things yet because you haven't taught it, or it doesn't pertain to it, you can change it. So it's moderated and it's not posted until you decide. At the end of this month, we'll be releasing student-facing feedback where the student can actually choose and get feedback when they want to. And that will be put inside of the conversation as well. So you as a teacher can judge the impact of that feedback. So some very interesting ways to be able to provide feedback and get feedback to students. So you see the conversations very clear, all those kind of things. The other things that we can easily do is we can add tags, because what we found with our pilot schools and our customers is the more and more qualitative learning data that you have and more just you end up amassing a lot. You might want to be able to turn in and do your own kind of labels. So if you wanted to be able to say that this is part of narrative writing, I might want to come here and say this is the narrative writing unit. And that narrative writing unit will become a tag, and I can make that whatever color I need, so I can actually be organized to be able to get to my things that say narrative writing unit on it. What I use it for in the classroom is I have in my version of gotFeedback, I have things that say provide feedback, or I want to come back to it during it's during the day. I just grab a tag real quick and say, okay, I'm going to get back to this later, and then I can go back and search for that tag at the top of the screen here and see that the narrative unit label will come up. And if I click on the narrative unit label, it's going to take me right to that specific thing, or any of the conversations or assignments that have that tag. So kind of very cool. Now let's take a look at personalizing learning a little bit. I'm going to go back into the English class and I'm going to create a new assignment. The new assignment that I'm going to create is going to be for the English class, but I might not want to give it to all of my English students. Maybe I just want to give it to specific students that want to have that are ready for it, or this is what they're going to do. I might even want to add, if it wants to go to another class, I do have another English class or an algebra class. I can add students to that, and they would also be part of this assignment. But now I can create a new assignment, and it's going to be, it's going to ask me to give it a name. That's probably a good idea to give it a name. So we're going to go ahead and say that this is informational writing, and it's going to be due, let's go ahead and say it's going to be due on the 29th. And we could label it, we could give it an informational, we can give it our own tag here because we want to be able to organize things. And we don't want to decide, as a teacher, I really don't like programmers deciding how I need to organize things or how to lay out things. I know what I want for my classroom. So we want to be able to, let's see if it's going to let me do that. I don't want to do that anymore, so we'll get rid of that. And we create an assignment, and it now creates an assignment just for those 4 students. And at any time I go to that assignment, it's only going to have those 4 students. Now, I can also add instructions here, and these instructions, whatever instructions I give, they're going to go into these students' conversations wherever they are in their conversation. Because conversations are unique between teacher and student, or teachers and students, if they've already put in 3 or 4 or 5, 6 pieces of learning evidence and question and answers, and we have conversation, but I have some new directions, or I have some, maybe I forgot to teach something, or I had additional instructions, I can add it into the assignment, and it'll add it wherever the end of that conversation is, so the student actually sees that and is notified of that in their notifications. So if I post that, you'll see that when I do post it, it'll actually show up as instructions inside of JC's conversation. So now I can start doing a lot of personalizing learning, because it's not about teaching to the middle. It's about meeting each of the needs of each student. So if I have 6 students that need to do this, or I have even 1 student that wants to go off on something, I can create an assignment for 1 student and be able to follow how they're doing by, 1, getting notifications that they're there, or just checking in on the student to see how they're doing and be able to provide feedback and see their growth and how things are going over time. So, so that basically shows how to do assignments. You can jump to any of your assignments very quickly. Same with classes, same to your students, and also the status of where students are. So all these kind of things that we want to be able to speed up and see students. We have been listening to our pilots and customers to try to make things as easy as possible. Even if we come down and go to, let's go down and close these out to be summaries. If you have your whole class here, I can actually look at the entire class's assignments. And even when I'm looking at that entire class, I know this is only 4. I'll jump over to that end of unit informational writing. Let's just go to the informational, not informational writing. Where's our end of unit narrative? and I can come down here and see all of my students and where they are. And if I want to go in and see where people are, I can just click and it'll take us right to that conversation so that I could have all student learning right on one page. So if I want to go down and then see Nigel's, I can see Nigel's right inside of his writing. So it's very, very easy. We want to try to minimize the number of clicks that you have as a teacher so you can get to the important parts of meeting their needs and providing growth producing feedback. So, okay, that is basically the things that I didn't show are being able to come in as an instructional specialist and be part of multiple classes or see students across many different classes. Same with the school administrator also is able to do that. So if a school administrator wants to check in on students and see what they're really working on, really seeing learning evidence as opposed to grades, attendance, and behavior, they can come in and actually see and participate in these learning conversations. And we're really starting to see counselors go, okay, this is cool. I can now go in and see how things are going as opposed to walking down to the classroom or sending an email to hear how they're going. And usually the gradebook comes out. Let's see what they're really doing and how, and you can let the student know that you're there and that you care about them, and that you're participating in their student journey. The other things I didn't talk about were professional conversations, which professional conversations are conversations that are just between educators at that school. Currently at my school that I'm working at right now, my principal and I are doing my evaluation from the beginning of school all throughout. And I keep posting in learning evidence, what's going on, how we're doing, different things, and follow-ups from that all in one long conversation between the principal and myself. So some very cool kind of features that we have in there that allow for more collaboration. So at this point, what I'm going to do is switch back over. If there are any questions anybody has about gotFeedback, you can jump on and speak, or you could hit it in chat. Totally up to you, but I'd love to hear what you have to say or questions that you may have.
Mike, uh, I'd like to see a little more about the utility of the tags, because that looks like a good way of accessing different aspects of the learning process. That otherwise, generally, I think there's going to be a little bit of culture shock dealing with the interface, getting used to it. But the tags look like a useful way of having it organized. Could you
And
show us again how those things work?
sure. Just let me jump over and bring that screen back
Oh,
here.
sorry.
Okay, so I'm logged back in as Miss Watson. If I jump down to, we can jump down to conversations or assignments. Let's go down to basically. I'll be honest with you, Lewis. The what we're finding is that the culture shock isn't necessarily in the interface. The culture shock is if the teachers are they ready to really get to know their students, and it's the pedagogy that comes in, and so the organization comes a lot easier once you start having and using the platform. It's not that difficult to do. So if I come in and edit the conversation, I can name labels to whatever I want. Even if I want to do a check-in label, a check-in label, because I want to be able to, at the beginning of class or beginning of the day, find all the students that I want to have check-ins with. I could actually label them as check-ins, and then JC is going to show up. When I want to remove her, I can easily just go back and edit that conversation, get rid of that label. And all labels, as I mentioned before, are listed right here. So if I did like the one we did before, which is informational writing, or even I gave forgetting the name of the assignment that I gave to it was 4 kids. Yeah, it'll just show these 4 students for that informational writing. So it allows you to, it's just like color coding your file folders,
Mhm.
except it's a lot faster and a lot easier. And it's just one of those things. And we did not put this on Rails, meaning we didn't tell you how to do it. because when I was testing this at the International School Bangkok, I found that my math teacher, she wanted to do it one way. The co-English teacher that taught upstairs for me, she wanted to do it her way. The science teacher wanted to do it their way, and our learning specialist wanted to do it her way. And it was like, okay, I can't meet all that. We got to figure a way out so that you can organize things the way that you want to, and that what works for you. And so, and that's the same with conversations or assignments. I have many teachers who actually only use 4 conversations throughout the whole year. They're 4 big ideas, and they just keep running conversations so they can see that growth over time and do reflections all throughout that conversation, so they can go all the way back to the beginning or all the way to the end. Where others do, like I'm doing right now in my class, is I'm having multiple. I do assignments weekly, and I have tons of different things. So I'm doing a lot of labeling inside of the platform. So does that kind of give you a good answer on that?
Yeah, yeah, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for the question. Ken, you said you had a question?
Yeah, you talked about reducing clicks for teachers, and that that is about making the teacher's job easier. And it seems to me that part of the making teacher's job easier is reducing the number of programs that they have to use. So whether we like it or not, um, many teachers are going to have to record attendance, and they're going to have to do some form of grading. Where does that fit into gotFeedback? Because
Uh,
I don't want to have to do that somewhere else.
right. I totally understand. Well, first off, what we've done, Ken, is we've gone after the hard stuff first. And there aren't many platforms out there that'll say that they're looking at how to help a teacher do UDL or provide ongoing feedback, or to look at metacognition, to build student agency, all of those kind of things. We knew that that was the hardest part. So we wanted to build that first, because if we get that right, and as Grant Wiggins used to always say, once you get assessment right, once you get that kind of things fall in place. And so we decided to start with, how do we break the mold of that transactional process between a teacher and student? Because that's what the LMS is. It is a transaction. It's an exchange. How do we go to where it breaks away from that and then be able to meet the needs of each student? So if we did this conversation 6 months ago, we wouldn't have announcements. We wouldn't have class information. We wouldn't have AI feedback. We wouldn't have all those things. So we know what we need to do to meet the needs of each teacher. And the way that I use it, I mean, each teacher and each student, and we get tons of feedback from them. So we're constantly iterating. We're constantly building and changing the platform to meet the needs. So right now at my school, I do still have to provide grades. And so as you and I've talked about before, especially if it's a standards-based grade, I'm able to look at how the student has grown and see where they are on that standard by their most recent work, or whatever, or most recent learning evidence, and be able to see that. Yes, I knew I just said, be able to see that, and I can then turn around and put that into a reporting tool. And that reporting tool is our SIS. And we don't want to necessarily try to duplicate an SIS, but we do want to make it easier for teachers to be able to report. And we know we need to have a competency-based reporting engine and a reporting engine there. We just haven't built that yet because schools already have that. What they don't have is a way that they can manage meeting the needs of all of their students and all in one place. And when you talked about, you made a very a good thing of saying, is this another program? Well, that's up to you. What are your goals? If you want each of your teachers to know your students really well and meet their needs and not have things fall through the cracks, that's why we built gotFeedback, because we're content neutral. We are technology neutral in the sense that we try to interact with anybody. You can use gotFeedback with Canvas if you want to. You can use it with Google Classroom. You can use it with anything that you want. You can, instead of using our video, you can use Flip. Whatever you want to do, you can put those inside those conversations by uploading files or making links and all those kind of things. And the third thing, because I said we are content neutral and I said that we're technology neutral, is that we're process neutral. And that's the one thing that has been interesting for teachers, because they haven't had a tool where they can build things the way that they want to. They usually, I use the phrase on rails. They're used to getting tools that are on rails that says, this is how you have to do the process. But guess what? That's what an LMS does. The LMS teaches to the middle, says you have to do it this way. Well, guess what? Some of my students may not learn that way, or they may not be able to ready for that. So we want to be able to break that off into individual chunks and have, if I have a student that doesn't want to type reflections, well, then fine, do audio, do video, whatever that may be. But I also could change my lesson to meet their needs and offer scaffolding at an individual level where I can't necessarily do that in a one-to-many kind of tool. So we're getting there. We're on the bleeding edge of building a platform to meet the needs of helping teachers meet the needs of all their diverse learners.
Yeah, I wasn't questioning what you've done, which I think is great. It was just the other things that teachers may still have to do, whether they want to or not.
Oh, and they're absolutely, those are things that you have to do. Just like we talked about those things on the LMS side at the very beginning. Those are things we have to do. We have to organize our classroom. We have to have content repositories. We have to have places for people to communicate, to turn in assignments, to put grades. And luckily, most teachers already have somewhere, if they're in a school that does grades, they have to put grades in, usually into their SIS. And is our system tied into that SIS set? No, it's not. We chose not to do that first. We decided to do the really hard stuff first, and try to get that right. So we're getting these our super users are teachers who are dead, that are so focused on meeting the needs of each of their students and providing ongoing feedback and personalizing learning. We're getting feedback from them on how to help them be better at doing what they already do. So we will get there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any other questions? Or I think that may be it. If that's the case, let me jump over to one more screen. We'll go ahead and wrap up. You're more than welcome to contact me at the places below. And yes, that is my phone number. You could also call that. To all people that signed up and showed up for the webinar, I will be following up with you with an email. We'll have a link to the recording of this. Also, we'll have a link to schedule a meeting with me if you want to learn more or answer any kind of questions or even getting you a personalized demo. There are many schools that are using and piloting gotFeedback. So if your school is interested in doing so, even if it's 1, 2, 3, 4 teachers, those ones that are out there that are your innovators or early adopters, please let me know, because we are looking to make the platform better and make a really truly fantastic student-centered platform. So I thank you very much for your time, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you very much.